In today's episode, we're uncovering the last photos of people ripped apart by animals, from a veterinary technician who reached through a gorilla's barrier, to newlyweds posing beside a tiger enclosure that concealed a deadly mistake.
It was October 21st, 2014. The western slopes of Lolo National Forest were quiet beneath the last light of day. At that hour, shadows pooled in the gullies, and the forest seemed to watch from the edges. Callie Mendez had been out here alone for just over an hour. Callie Mendez was a 28-year-old wilderness therapy counselor who had returned to Montana after a 2-year Peace Corps placement in the Philippines. She had taken a job with a wilderness therapy nonprofit near Missoula, counseling adolescents through hiking, backpacking, and survival challenges. Colleagues described her as calm, dependable, and passionate about guiding others through discomfort. On her days off, she preferred solitude, short day hikes, sunrises, and photography. She'd recently begun collecting fall landscape shots for a personal project. That Tuesday, she'd clocked out early and driven up a forest access road to a marked loop she knew well, roughly 4 miles, with a ridgeline overlook popular in autumn. She'd packed light, fleece, hiking boots, water, and her phone mounted to a small tripod. GPS ping showed her stopping near a rock cluster just after 5:30 p.m., where she spent the next 25 minutes positioning herself for photos. She wasn't far from the trail, maybe 100 feet, but elevation and brush had isolated her. She wouldn't have seen what was watching from above. The ridge behind her rose in layers of limestone and brush. Fallen pine needles covered the trail, making each step silent. Somewhere above, a male cougar, later measured at 122 pounds, moved quietly through the shadows. Earlier that day, 2 backcountry hikers had seen the same cat farther east, near a drainage trail. They'd reported it casually to a ranger they passed, but no formal alert had gone out. With no warning signs at the trailhead, Mendez had no reason to suspect danger. Mountain lions are solitary ambush predators found throughout western North America, with adult males weighing up to 220 pounds and possessing incredible strength and agility. Their massive paws are equipped with retractable claws over 2 inches long, designed to grip and tear flesh. These cats prefer to hunt from elevated terrain, using cover to stalk silently before leaping distances of up to 40 feet. Unlike bears, cougars do not bluff charge. When they commit to an attack, it's sudden, silent, and fatal. Mendez crouched, stood, and turned repeatedly, adjusting the camera, walking back to check the framing, then stepping into position again. Her back was exposed for minutes at a time, a fatal mistake when sharing territory with an ambush predator. Mountain lions are evolutionarily programmed to attack from behind, targeting the neck and spine to deliver a quick kill. The repeated exposure of her back and neck would have triggered every predatory instinct the cougar possessed. Roughly 650 feet uphill, a retired Forest Service employee named Jerry Hooper had stopped to watch the light change. He later told investigators he noticed the animal before he noticed her. He described seeing it crouched low but moving closer, downhill and slow, before it disappeared over the edge. The attack happened silent at first. Hooper saw the cougar leap a clean, fast arc from above the rocks and land hard on Mendez's back. She screamed once, but the sound was cut off almost instantly as the animal clamped its jaws around the back of her neck. Hooper described the cat's legs digging in as it bit down again, lower this time, around the base of her skull, its body jerking violently as it tried to subdue her. Her limbs kicked wildly at first, then slowed as the cougar dragged her off the boulder into a gully below, gripping with claws and repeatedly adjusting its bite. Hooper ran down slow, but steep ground and brush slowed him. By the time he reached the area, the cat had backed away into shadow, and Mendez was motionless. Her body lay twisted between rocks. eyes open. According to the autopsy, the impact had fractured her skull and broken ribs. Deep claw marks crossed her shoulders and side. There was no sign she had fought back. The attack had been too swift and devastating for any defensive response. Authorities arrived after nightfall, following Hooper's call. Mendez's GPS and Hooper's account narrowed the search area. Her body was recovered around 9 p.m. and transported under Forest Service escort to Missoula. Wildlife officers spent the next 2 days tracking the cat, using scent dogs and trail cameras. It was located on October 23rd and euthanized after confirmation by scat and paw print analysis. Mendez's employer held a small memorial at the therapy center that weekend. Several clients spoke, as did her former Peace Corps supervisor. Her family, originally from Colorado, declined interviews and requested privacy. Authorities released a formal incident report the following week, urging hikers to remain vigilant even on well-marked trails and announcing updated signage at 10 regional trailheads. In coordination with state wildlife officials, they also implemented a targeted educational campaign about predator encounters for wilderness therapy groups operating in the area. It was May 17, 2018, when the pristine wilderness of Big Cypress National Preserve in Florida became the setting for a deadly encounter that would shock wildlife officials across the state. The vast wetland ecosystem stretched endlessly in all directions, with ancient cypress trees rising from dark waters. Loop Road wound through the heart of the preserve, crossing dozens of narrow canals where sawgrass and cattails created perfect hiding spots for the area's most dangerous residents. Danielle Kirkwood, a 29-year-old fitness instructor from Chicago, had traveled to South Florida with 4 college sorority sisters for what was supposed to be a celebratory bachelorette party weekend. The group had spent the day visiting various scenic locations throughout the Everglades region, taking increasingly adventurous photos for their social media accounts. Danielle's athletic background and competitive personality had made her the natural leader of their photography expeditions, always pushing for more dramatic shots than her more cautious friends preferred. The American alligator stands as one of North America's most ancient and powerful predators, having survived virtually unchanged for over 200 million years. These apex hunters can reach lengths exceeding 14 feet and weights of up to 1,000 pounds, with muscular bodies perfectly adapted for explosive attacks from concealment. Their massive jaws contain 74 to 80 razor-sharp teeth designed to grip and crush prey, delivering bite forces reaching 3,000 pounds per square inch. Alligators possess exceptional sensory capabilities, including the ability to detect vibrations in water from great distances. At 7:15 p.m., the group had stopped along a scenic section of Loop Road where a narrow canal ran parallel to the pavement. Danielle spotted what she believed would be the perfect backdrop in the shallow water approximately 30 feet from the road. A 9-foot male alligator had been resting motionless in the murky water for over 2 hours, perfectly camouflaged among the submerged logs and vegetation. Danielle's fatal mistake occurred when she ignored multiple warning signs and waded into the restricted waterway, believing the knee-deep water posed no significant threat. Her friends called out warnings from the roadside, but their concerns were dismissed. The alligator remained completely still as Danielle approached, calculating the optimal moment to strike. The critical trigger came when Danielle turned her back to the hidden predator while positioning herself for the selfie. Her movement created vibrations that the alligator's sensitive lateral line system detected immediately, while her splashing mimicked the stress signals of wounded prey animals. The attack began with explosive violence as the 9-foot alligator launched himself from the water with tremendous speed. His massive jaws opened to reveal rows of canonical teeth before clamping down on Danielle's right thigh with crushing force. The initial bite fractured her femur bone, and severed the femoral artery, causing immediate massive hemorrhaging that turned the surrounding water crimson. The alligator's 2,125 pounds per square inch of bite force crushed through muscle, bone, and major blood vessels. The reptile's serrated teeth locked into her flesh with a grip that no human strength could break. The alligator immediately began backing toward deeper water, dragging his prey away from the shoreline. The predator's instinctive death roll began as he reached the water deep enough to submerge completely. The massive reptile spun rapidly, using rotational force to disorient his prey and cause additional catastrophic injuries. Danielle's body was whipped through the water with tremendous violence, the spinning motion fracturing multiple ribs and causing severe internal bleeding. The alligator maintained his death grip while continuing the rolling motion for nearly 45 seconds, each rotation driving his teeth deeper. The combination of massive blood loss from the severed femoral artery and violent trauma sent her body into irreversible shock within the first minute. As Danielle's struggles weakened, the alligator dragged her into water over 6 feet deep, where his natural instincts drove him to drown his prey. The reptile held her underwater while maintaining his crushing bite. Danielle lost consciousness from blood loss and oxygen deprivation within 2 minutes of the initial attack. Her 4 friends screamed and threw rocks into the water, attempting to distract the massive predator. One friend called 911 while others continued making noise, trying to drive the alligator away from Danielle's motionless form. Emergency responders arrived within 12 minutes, but Danielle had already been underwater for over 8 minutes. Wildlife officers used long poles to drive the alligator away before recovering her body. Paramedics attempted resuscitation efforts, but the combination of massive blood loss, drowning, and severe trauma had caused irreversible damage. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission conducted a thorough investigation, determining that recent dry conditions had concentrated alligator populations in remaining water sources. The responsible alligator was located and removed the following day. Danielle's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the preserve, arguing that warning signs were insufficient. The incident prompted renewed calls for enhanced safety measures throughout Florida's state parks. Danielle Kirkwood's story was a tragic reminder of how quickly ancient predators can turn deadly when humans enter their domain. It was January 8, 2015, when the notorious waters of Cahill's Crossing on the East Alligator River became the scene of another devastating crocodile attack. Located in Arnhem Land, Northern Territory, this concrete causeway connects Kakudu National Park with Aboriginal communities across the river. The crossing is infamous as one of Australia's most dangerous waterways, where saltwater crocodiles congregate in large numbers during high tide. Multiple warning signs in several languages line the approaches, clearly stating the extreme danger posed by crocodiles. Kylie Brannon, a 19-year-old environmental science student from Darwin, was visiting Cahill's Crossing with her family during their annual camping expedition to Arnhem Land. Her parents, Robert and Linda, both high school teachers aged 52 and 48 respectively, have been bringing their children to this remote region for over a decade. The family tradition represented their commitment to showing their children Australia's natural heritage firsthand. Kylie's younger brother Jake, 16, idolized his adventurous older sister and often followed her lead during their outdoor adventures. Kylie had always been the more daring of the two siblings, displaying a confidence in water that bordered on recklessness. Her environmental science studies had given her extensive knowledge about crocodile behavior and conservation. Yet this academic understanding seemed to fuel her overconfidence rather than caution. She had grown up swimming in Darwin's beaches and pools, developing strong swimming skills that made her feel invincible in aquatic environments. The family had arrived during peak tourist season, when high temperatures and school holidays drew many visitors to witness crocodiles gathering at the crossing. The timing of their visit coincided with high tide, when saltwater crocodiles are most active and aggressive. During these periods, the predators use tidal flow to hunt more effectively, positioning themselves strategically around the crossing to ambush prey. The concrete causeway acts as a funnel, concentrating both fish and crocodiles in a relatively small area. Saltwater crocodiles demonstrate remarkable intelligence in their hunting strategies, often working together to herd prey into confined areas. At Cahill's Crossing, these apex predators have learned to exploit the unique geography, using the concrete structure and tidal flows to their advantage. Adult males can exceed 20 feet in length and weigh over 2,000 pounds, making them capable of taking prey as large as water buffalo. Their hunting technique involves approaching prey from below, using their powerful tails to propel themselves upward with explosive force. The initial strike aims to secure a grip before initiating the death roll that causes massive trauma and drowning. At 2:15 p.m., despite multiple warning signs and her family's increasingly desperate pleas, Kylie entered the East Alligator River at the crossing. The 18-foot male crocodile had been positioned upstream, using the tidal current to drift silently toward the crossing area. As Kylie swam toward the middle of the causeway, the massive predator approached from below, invisible in the murky water. Her family watched from the concrete structure, their warnings becoming more frantic as she moved further from shore. The crocodile struck from directly below, its massive jaws engulfing Kylie's midsection in a crushing bite. The initial impact drove her underwater as over 3,000 pounds of bite force compressed her torso. The predator's canonical teeth, each measuring up to 4 inches long, penetrated deep into her abdomen and back, crushing her spine and pelvis simultaneously. The devastating injury caused immediate paralysis and massive internal bleeding. The crocodile initiated its signature death roll, spinning violently through the water while maintaining its crushing grip. Each rotation caused additional fractures to Kylie's ribs and vertebrae, while the spinning motion disoriented her and prevented any chance of escape. Her family's screams echoed across the water as blood began surfacing around the attack site. The massive reptile's powerful tail created enormous splashes as it thrashed through the water, each movement causing further trauma to its victim. After 3 complete rotations, the crocodile dragged Kylie toward deeper water, away from any potential rescue attempts. The death roll had caused catastrophic internal injuries, rupturing major organs and blood vessels throughout her torso. The combination of crushing trauma, internal bleeding, and drowning proved rapidly fatal. The predator maintained its grip for over 4 minutes, ensuring its victim posed no further threat before releasing the body in deeper sections of the river. Emergency services arrived within 20 minutes, but dangerous conditions and the presence of multiple crocodiles prevented immediate recovery efforts. Kylie's body was recovered several hours later, approximately 200 meters downstream from the attack site. The investigation revealed that Kylie had ignored multiple warning signs designed to prevent exactly this type of tragedy. Park authorities reinforced safety measures and increased ranger patrols during peak visiting periods. Kylie's death devastated her family and the Darwin community, where she was known for environmental activism. The Cahill's Crossing attack demonstrated once again the lethal efficiency of saltwater crocodiles.
It was August 14th, 2015, and the Denver Zoo in Colorado was winding down from another busy summer day. The sprawling 80-acre facility, home to over 4,000 animals, buzzed with the quiet efficiency of evening operations as staff prepared exhibits for the night. In the Bear Country section, the massive grizzly exhibit stood silent except for the occasional grunt from Bruno, the zoo's 600-pound male grizzly bear. Miguel Santos had been with the Denver Zoo's maintenance crew for 3 years, earning a reputation as the most reliable worker on the team. At 29, the former construction worker had found his calling caring for the infrastructure that kept both animals and visitors safe. His colleagues knew they could count on Miguel to stay late when repairs were needed, often working alone to avoid disrupting daytime operations. Miguel's supervisor had mentioned earlier that day how the maintenance budget was stretched thin, and any overtime needed approval from 3 different departments. This bureaucratic maze often meant critical repairs were delayed for days, something that bothered Miguel's perfectionist nature. He took pride in keeping the zoo running smoothly, often completing small fixes on his own time to avoid the paperwork hassle. Grizzly bears are among North America's most powerful predators, with adult males weighing between 400 and 800 pounds. These massive omnivores possess incredible strength, capable of running 35 miles per hour and climbing trees despite their size. Their claws can grow up to 4 inches long, designed for digging and catching fish, but equally effective as weapons. Grizzlies have an excellent sense of smell, 2,100 times better than humans, and can detect food from miles away. That evening, Miguel had noticed a loose panel in the secondary barrier during his routine inspection. The repair would normally require calling animal control to secure Bruno in his night den, then waiting for a supervisor to approve the overtime work. Instead, Miguel decided to handle the quick fix himself, reasoning that he could tighten a few bolts without bothering anyone. He entered the service corridor between the barriers, confident that Bruno was safely locked in his indoor enclosure. What Miguel didn't know was that the den's electronic locking system had experienced a malfunction earlier that afternoon. The day shift supervisor had noted the issue in the log, but hadn't had time to complete the repair before his shift ended. The backup manual lock hadn't been engaged, leaving Bruno free to move between his indoor and outdoor spaces. As Miguel worked on the loose panel, Bruno emerged from his den into the main enclosure. The massive grizzly, startled by the unexpected sounds and human scent in his territory, immediately became agitated. When Miguel looked up from his work, he found himself face to face with 600 pounds of agitated grizzly bear, separated only by the gap he had created in the secondary barrier. The attack was swift and devastating. Bruno's massive paw struck through the opening Miguel had created, his 4-inch claws raking across the maintenance worker's chest and shoulder. The force of the blow sent Miguel sprawling backward, his tools scattering across the concrete floor. Bruno's powerful arm reached further through the gap, his claws finding purchase on Miguel's work shirt and dragging him closer to the barrier. Bruno's second swipe caught him across the head and neck, the bear's claws opening deep gashes that severed major arteries. The grizzly's strength was overwhelming, each strike delivered with enough force to break bones and tear through muscle tissue. Miguel's movements grew weaker as blood loss and trauma overwhelmed his system, his body unable to withstand the devastating injuries inflicted by Bruno's powerful claws. Security discovered Miguel's body during the morning rounds, the maintenance worker having succumbed to his injuries alone in the service corridor. The investigation revealed the electronic lock malfunction and Miguel's decision to work alone without following proper safety protocols. Bruno was relocated to a more secure facility in Montana, while the Denver Zoo implemented new mandatory buddy system policies for all maintenance work near dangerous animal exhibits. It was April 23, 2016, and the luxury resort beach on Réunion Island stretched like a postcard scene before newlyweds Claire and Marc Dubois as they enjoyed their first morning in what they believed was tropical paradise. The 28-year-old marketing coordinator from Lion had never traveled outside Europe before this honeymoon trip, her excitement about experiencing the Indian Ocean's crystal-clear waters evident in her eager exploration of the resort's beachfront amenities. Claire was an average swimmer whose experience was limited to hotel pools and the occasional lake swim during family vacations, but the calm, clear waters near their resort appeared completely safe and inviting. The couple had noticed small warning signs posted in French near the beach entrance, but the bureaucratic language seemed more like standard legal disclaimers than urgent safety information. Local staff had mentioned something about marine activity during their check-in briefing, but the casual tone suggested routine precautions rather than immediate dangers. What Claire and Marc didn't understand was that Réunion Island had been experiencing an unprecedented surge in shark attacks over the past several years, with bull sharks becoming increasingly aggressive in the island's coastal waters. The coral formation that Claire could see approximately 100 meters from shore was known to locals as a prime bull shark hunting ground, but this critical information was rarely communicated clearly to tourists. Bull sharks are particularly dangerous in tropical waters like those surrounding Reunion Island, where their ability to hunt in shallow, warm water puts them in direct contact with swimmers and surfers. These aggressive predators are known for their territorial behavior and tendency to attack without provocation, especially in areas where they have established feeding patterns. The bull sharks around Reunion had become increasingly bold in recent years, with some researchers suggesting that overfishing had forced them to seek alternative food sources. Claire decided to swim out to the coral formation while Mark napped on the beach, her plan to explore the underwater scenery, representing the kind of adventure she had dreamed about during months of honeymoon planning. Claire entered the water confidently, her swimming strokes carrying her steadily toward the distant coral reef. The swim to the coral formation took longer than Claire had anticipated, the distance proving more challenging than it had appeared from the beach. By the time she reached the reef and spent several minutes exploring the underwater scenery, Claire was already feeling fatigued from the extended swim in unfamiliar conditions. A 10-foot bull shark had been patrolling the coral formation for most of the afternoon, its territorial instincts triggered by Claire's presence in what it considered its established hunting ground. The shark had been following Claire's movements since she first entered the water, its predatory behavior escalating as she spent more time in its territory. The attack came when Claire was approximately halfway back to shore, her tired swimming stroke creating exactly the kind of distressed prey behavior that triggered the bull shark's feeding instincts. The massive predator struck from below with devastating force, its powerful jaws clamping down on Claire's legs and lower torso while its muscular body drove her underwater. The shark's razor-sharp teeth punctured through muscle and bone, opening massive wounds that immediately began bleeding profusely into the surrounding water. Claire's screams pierced the afternoon air as she broke the surface, her desperate cries for help alerting Mark and other beachgoers to the unfolding tragedy. The bull shark's initial attack had severed major arteries in Claire's legs, causing massive blood loss that quickly weakened her ability to stay afloat. The predator circled back for a second attack, its aggressive nature escalated by the blood in the water and Claire's continued struggles. Mark immediately entered the water and began swimming frantically toward his wife, but the distance and his own limited swimming ability made reaching her quickly impossible. The bull shark struck again, this time targeting Claire's upper body as she tried desperately to ward off the massive predator. The shark's powerful jaws crushed Claire's chest and shoulders, its bite force compressing her ribcage, while its thrashing movements drove its teeth deeper into vital organs. Claire's movements ceased as massive trauma and blood loss overwhelmed her system, her body going limp in the churning water as the bull shark maintained its grip. Mark reached the attack site just as the predator released its hold and disappeared into the deeper water, leaving Claire's lifeless form floating in a spreading pool of blood. Emergency responders arrived within minutes of the first distress calls, but Claire's massive injuries made any medical intervention futile. She was pronounced dead at the scene, her honeymoon dream transformed into a nightmare that would haunt Mark for the rest of his life. The incident sparked immediate controversy about tourist safety information on Reunion Island, with critics arguing that visitors weren't adequately warned about the very real dangers lurking in the island's seemingly pristine waters. The attack led to enhanced warning systems and mandatory safety briefings for all resort guests, while local authorities implemented new protocols for communicating shark risks to international visitors. Claire's death became a catalyst for improved tourist safety measures throughout the French territories, ensuring that future visitors would be better informed about the hidden dangers in tropical paradise.
It was August 14th, 2018, and the mist hung low over Uganda's Bwindi impenetrable forest, creating an otherworldly atmosphere among the ancient trees. The dense canopy filtered sunlight into scattered beams that illuminated the forest floor, where centuries of fallen leaves created a carpet that muffled every footstep. This was one of the last refuges of the mountain gorilla, a place where humans were visitors in a kingdom ruled by creatures of immense power and intelligence. Nolan Kerrigan had joined a guided gorilla trekking expedition as part of what he called his Authentic Africa experience. At 34, he worked as a sustainable housing consultant and had recently begun promoting ecotourism through a modest blog read primarily by environmental professionals and green architecture enthusiasts. He wasn't famous, but he took pride in positioning himself as more knowledgeable than typical tourists, often challenging guides and correcting other group members. The trek had begun before dawn, with 8 tourists following experienced guides through increasingly dense vegetation. Nolan had researched mountain gorillas extensively, reading academic papers about their behavior and social structure. He felt confident in his understanding of these creatures and frequently shared facts with the group, despite the guide's request for silence. Their destination was the territory of the Rushagura family, a group of 17 mountain gorillas led by a massive silverback named Marima. The guides had been tracking this family for years and knew their patterns intimately. As they approached the gorilla's current location, the lead guide reminded everyone of the critical rules. Maintain a 7-meter distance, avoid direct eye contact, stay low to appear non-threatening, and never make sudden movements or loud noises. Mountain gorillas are among the most powerful primates on Earth, with adult silverbacks weighing up to 400 pounds and possessing the strength of 10 men. Despite their primarily vegetarian diet, they have massive canine teeth and can become extremely aggressive when they perceive threats to their family group. Silverbacks use chest beating, charging, and physical dominance to maintain order and protect their troop. While generally peaceful, they will not hesitate to attack if their authority is challenged or their family is threatened. The group had been observing the gorilla family for 20 minutes when Marima emerged from behind a cluster of bamboo stalks. The silverback was magnificent, his silver-gray back gleaming in the filtered sunlight, his massive frame moving with surprising grace through the undergrowth. Several females and juveniles fed peacefully nearby, occasionally glancing at the human visitors with mild curiosity. The tourists crouched in respectful silence, cameras clicking softly as they documented this rare encounter. The guides monitored both the gorillas and their charges, ready to intervene if anyone violated the safety protocols. Everything was proceeding perfectly, until Nolan decided he needed a better shot. While the others remained crouched, Nolan slowly stood to his full height, raising his phone above his head to capture what he envisioned as a panoramic selfie with the silverback in the background. The guide immediately whispered for him to get down, but Nolan waved him off dismissively, believing his research had given him superior insight into gorilla behavior. To make matters worse, Nolan made a soft clicking sound with his tongue, trying to get Marima to look toward the camera. The silverback's head snapped up immediately, his dark eyes locking onto the standing human. In gorilla society, standing tall and making direct challenges are acts of aggression that demanded a response from the dominant male. Marima rose to his full height, his massive chest expanding as he began the intimidation display that precedes an attack. He beat his chest with thunderous blows that echoed through the forest, the sound reverberating off the trees like gunshots. The other gorillas scattered, mothers grabbing their young as they retreated to safety. Nolan finally realized his mistake and began to lower himself, but it was too late. The silverback had interpreted his behavior as a direct challenge to his authority, and gorilla social structure demanded a violent response. Marima charged with explosive speed, covering the distance between them in 3 powerful strides. The impact was devastating. The silverback's massive hands grabbed Nolan by the shoulders and slammed him to the ground with bone-crushing force. Nolan's collarbone snapped audibly as he hit the forest floor, but Marima wasn't finished. The gorilla's powerful jaws clamped down on Nolan's torso, his canine teeth puncturing through ribs and into vital organs. Marima lifted Nolan's broken body and shook him violently before hurling him against a tree trunk. The impact shattered Nolan's spine and skull, ending his life instantly. The silverback stood over the motionless form for several seconds, huffing and beating his chest one final time to assert his dominance. The guides immediately began their emergency protocol, using smoke canisters and noisemakers to drive the agitated gorilla away from the group. The other tourists were evacuated quickly while radio calls went out for medical assistance. By the time the helicopter medics arrived 2 hours later, there was nothing they could do. Nolan's death was ruled the result of his own actions in violating established safety protocols. The Uganda Wildlife Authority conducted a thorough investigation but found no fault with the guides or the trekking procedures. Marima and his family were monitored closely for several weeks but showed no unusual aggression towards subsequent visitor groups. New safety measures were implemented, including mandatory pre-trek briefings with video demonstrations of proper behavior around gorillas. Guides were given additional authority to remove tourists who refused to follow instructions, and group sizes were reduced to make supervision easier. Nolan's blog remained online for months after his death, his final post describing his excitement about the upcoming gorilla encounter. His family eventually took it down, unable to reconcile his confident words with the tragedy that followed. Nolan's arrogance had cost him everything in the confrontation with a creature that demanded respect. It was December 9, 2017. The morning heat over Lake Victoria clung to the forest edges of Ngamba Island as a group of visitors gathered along the fence line of the chimpanzee sanctuary. Staff members moved through the routine feeding with practiced calm, tossing fruit over the enclosure walls while instructing tourists to remain behind designated barriers. On the far end of the viewing zone, a small break in protocol, a crouched figure leaning past the postmark boundary, went mostly unnoticed until it was far too late. Muriel Durand was a 62-year-old retired French schoolteacher from Clermont-Ferrand who had arrived in Uganda 3 days earlier on a volunteer ecotourism program with her younger sister. She had spent her career teaching literature and had taken up wildlife travel during retirement. This trip was her fourth to Africa and her first time volunteering in a conservation context. Friends described her as thoughtful and methodical, someone who planned each day down to the hour. On Ngamba, she had expressed particular interest in the chimpanzees, especially photographing them up close. The sanctuary staff had guided the group through safety procedures that morning. Maintain a 10-foot distance from any enclosure fencing. Never crouch or turn your back. And follow staff instructions during feeding times when the animals, especially dominant males, could become more agitated. For most of the season, Durand followed directions, but near the end, as others moved away toward the visitor center, she lingered near a corner where a juvenile chimp hung upside down from a low branch. She crouched with her back to the main gate, raising her phone to take a final selfie. A keeper shouted for her to step back. She didn't move. Chimpanzees are genetically close to humans but physically far stronger. Adult males can be 5 to 7 times stronger than an adult male, with the ability to exert over 1,300 pounds of force per square inch in their bite. They are territorial and hierarchical creatures, with dominant individuals prone to explosive aggression, particularly during feeding periods or perceived intrusions. Their massive canine teeth, up to 2 inches long, are designed to tear flesh, while their powerful arms can easily dismember prey. Though rare, chimpanzee attacks on humans, especially in sanctuary or captivity settings, have been documented to result in severe facial trauma, limb injuries, and dismemberment due to their method of attacking the face and extremities. The adult male involved in this incident, nicknamed Kusa, had recently asserted dominance within the group and had shown food-aggressive behavior in previous weeks. On that morning, a secondary enclosure gate used by the keepers to pass food trays was not fully latched. During the commotion of the feeding, Kusa slipped through unnoticed. No one saw him approach until he was already outside the enclosure. He sprinted directly toward Durand with terrifying speed. Her sister and 2 staff members yelled in alarm, but the distance between them was too great. Kusa grabbed Durand from behind and yanked her backward by the shoulder of her shirt. dragging her several feet across the dirt toward the fence line with devastating force. She screamed once. Within seconds, 2 more chimps, juveniles by size but still incredibly powerful, followed through the open gate. What followed lasted under 10 seconds, but would haunt witnesses for the rest of their lives. One chimp seized her forearm and bit through the flesh at the elbow with bone-crushing force. Another clawed at her face with razor-sharp nails. Kusa stood over her, striking downward repeatedly with both fists and biting at the side of her head with his massive canines. A keeper attempted to intervene with a water hose and loud banging on the gate panel, but was knocked off balance by one of the juveniles and forced to retreat. Duran's sister, in shock, stood just outside the viewing zone and later described an eruption of screaming and movement, like watching a group turn into something else entirely. By the time the staff managed to drive the animals back into the enclosure using poles and barriers, Durand was no longer moving. She had lost part of her scalp and right hand. Her clothing was shredded, and she had sustained severe lacerations to her face and throat. She was briefly stabilized by the island's on-site medic team before being airlifted by helicopter to Entebbe. The aircraft had been dispatched from the mainland and reached the island in just over 40 minutes. Despite emergency transfusions and surgery at a private hospital in Entebbe, she died 6 hours later from blood loss and traumatic brain injury. The Ngamba Island Chimpanzee Sanctuary was closed to visitors indefinitely the following day. Internal reviews confirmed the gate latch failure as the primary cause of the breach, but also noted that Durand had stepped outside the designated safety zone in violation of staff warnings. French consular officials assisted with repatriation. Her remains were flown to France on December 14th. The sanctuary released a brief statement of condolence and undertook immediate changes to the feeding area, including double gate locking systems and an extended perimeter barrier. No animals were euthanized. Ugandan Wildlife Authority officials ruled that the chimps had acted in line with typical stress-aggression behavior. It was July 15, 2016, when tragedy struck the pristine wilderness of Glacier National Park in Montana. The rugged terrain around Logan Pass stretched endlessly, with towering peaks piercing the summer sky and dense forest of lodgepole pine creating a natural maze below the tree line. Huckleberry bushes dotted the landscape, their purple fruit ripening in the warm afternoon sun, creating an irresistible feast for the park's most formidable residents. The area's remote location, accessible only by the winding Going to the Sun Road, had attracted millions of visitors seeking untamed wilderness experiences. Sabrina Caldwell, a 24-year-old social media marketing coordinator from Denver, had arrived with her college friends Maya Chen and Jessica Torres for what was supposed to be a memorable weekend camping adventure. The trio were experienced day hikers who had conquered numerous Colorado trails, but this marked their first expedition into true grizzly country. Sabrina's confident personality and love for documenting their cross-country national park tour had driven them to seek increasingly dramatic backdrops for their hiking photos. The friends had planned to tackle the famous Highline Trail, unaware that recent bear activity had prompted park officials to issue closure warnings for several off-trail areas. Their campsite at Apgar had buzzed with stories from other visitors about recent wildlife sightings, creating an atmosphere of excitement mixed with underlying tension. The North American grizzly bear stands as one of the continent's apex predators, with adult females weighing up to 400 pounds and possessing strength 5 times greater than humans. These massive omnivores spend summer months consuming up to 20,000 calories daily, preparing for winter hibernation. Their exceptional hearing and sense of smell, combined with surprising speed reaching 35 miles per hour, make them formidable hunters. Grizzlies become particularly aggressive when protecting cubs or defending food sources, with maternal instincts triggering violent defensive responses to perceived threats. Their intelligence and memory capabilities allowed them to associate humans with food sources, making habituated bears extremely dangerous to encounter. At around 4:15 p.m., the group encountered a 350-pound female grizzly approximately 100 yards from the designated Highline Trail. The sow was methodically feeding on huckleberries, her massive frame moving gracefully through the dense brush. Sabrina spotted the bear through the trees and quietly separated from her companions, believing she could capture the perfect wildlife photograph from a closer vantage point. Despite Maya's and Jessica's urgent whispers to return, Sabrina continued approaching until she reached a position roughly 30 feet from the feeding animal. The critical mistake occurred when Sabrina stepped onto loose rocks while positioning herself for the shot. The sudden noise caused the grizzly to lift her massive head and lock eyes with the intruder. Unknown to Sabrina, 2 small cubs were foraging nearby, invisible in the thick undergrowth. The mother bear's protective instincts immediately activated as she perceived Sabrina as a direct threat to her offspring. The sow stood on her hind legs, reaching nearly 8 feet in height, and began huffing loudly while clacking her teeth together in an unmistakable warning display. When Sabrina raised her phone, the bear interpreted this movement as an aggressive gesture. The grizzly dropped to all fours and launched into a devastating charge across the rocky terrain, her powerful legs propelling her massive body at 25 miles per hour. Sabrina turned to flee but stumbled onto the uneven ground after taking only 5 steps. The bear's enormous paw, equipped with 4-inch claws, struck her across the back with tremendous force, sending her crashing face first into the rocky soil. The impact alone fractured 2 ribs and caused severe lacerations across her shoulder blades. The grizzly's massive jaws, capable of exerting 975 pounds per square inch of pressure, clamped down on Sabrina's neck and shoulder region. The bear's 3-inch canine teeth punctured through muscle and bone, severing her carotid artery and crushing her cervical vertebrae. The sow shook Sabrina violently for approximately 15 seconds, her powerful neck muscles whipping the victim's body like a rag doll. The attack ceased as abruptly as it began when the mother bear heard her cubs calling from the brush. She immediately released Sabrina's motionless form and retreated to gather her young, disappearing into the dense forest within moments. Maya and Jessica, who had witnessed the horrific encounter from the safety of the main trail, immediately contacted park rangers via emergency radio. A helicopter rescue team arrived 35 minutes later, but Sabrina had already succumbed to massive blood loss and spinal cord trauma. The incident prompted a comprehensive investigation by park officials, who determined that recent drought conditions had concentrated berry-producing plants in specific areas, creating higher bear densities than normal. Sabrina's family released a statement, emphasizing the importance of respecting wildlife boundaries and following park safety protocols. The National Park Service implemented additional warning systems and increased ranger patrols in high-risk areas. It was September 15, 2016, when the pristine waters of Yellowwater, Billabong, and Kakudu National Park became the scene of a devastating crocodile attack. The Billabong, located in Australia's Northern Territory, stretches across thousands of hectares of wetland teeming with wildlife. Ancient paperbark trees line the muddy shores, their twisted roots creating perfect hiding spots for the apex predators that call these waters home. During the dry season, the receding waters concentrate both prey and predators into smaller areas, making encounters more likely. Matilda Lawson, a 34-year-old wildlife photographer from Melbourne, had joined a guided photography tour specifically to capture images of saltwater crocodiles in their natural habitat. With 8 years of experience photographing Australian wildlife, Matilda was known among her peers for taking calculated risks to achieve the perfect shot. Her portfolio included stunning images of venomous snakes, aggressive cassowaries, and even great white sharks. The Kakudu expedition represented the culmination of months of planning, and she sought to document the prehistoric giants that had survived virtually unchanged for millions of years. The morning started routinely for the small photography group. Their experienced guide had positioned them at a safe viewing area overlooking the Billabong, where a massive crocodile had been spotted the previous evening. However, technical difficulties soon disrupted the planned session. Matilda's expensive telephoto lens began malfunctioning, producing blurred images that would be unusable for her upcoming exhibition. While the guide returned to their vehicle to retrieve backup equipment, Matilda worked frantically to repair her camera, knowing that the perfect lighting conditions of dawn would soon pass. Saltwater crocodiles are the largest living reptiles on Earth, with adult males reaching lengths of up to 23 feet and weighing over 2,000 pounds. These apex predators possess the strongest bite force of any animal, capable of exerting pressure exceeding 3,700 pounds per square inch. Their hunting strategy relies on patience and explosive power, remaining motionless for hours before launching devastating ambush attacks. Despite their massive size, saltwater crocodiles can propel themselves completely out of the water and cover surprising distances on land when pursuing prey. As Matilda tested her repaired equipment, she moved closer to the water's edge to frame her shots properly. The massive 20-foot male crocodile had been lying motionless among the fallen logs for over an hour, perfectly camouflaged in the murky shallows. From her position 12 meters from the shoreline, Matilda believed she maintained a safe distance while achieving the dramatic angle she desired. The prehistoric predator had been tracking her movements through barely visible eyes positioned just above the waterline. The attack came with terrifying suddenness. The enormous crocodile exploded from the water with incredible force, its powerful tail propelling its massive body completely onto the muddy bank. In less than 2 seconds, it covered the 12-meter distance to where Matilda stood. Her camera equipment scattered across the ground as the reptile's massive jaws clamped around her torso with bone-crushing force. The impact of over 3,000 pounds per square inch instantly fractured multiple ribs and compressed her chest cavity. The crocodile's primary teeth, each measuring up to 3 inches long, penetrated deep into Matilda's abdomen and back. As the predator dragged her toward the water, it began the signature death roll that makes saltwater crocodiles so deadly. The violent spinning motion, designed to disorient prey and cause massive internal trauma, broke additional ribs and caused severe damage to her internal organs. Matilda's screams echoed across the Billabong, alerting her tour group, who were still 100 meters away at their vehicle. The crocodile pulled its victim into deeper water, continuing the death roll with devastating effect. Each rotation caused further internal bleeding as the reptile's teeth remained locked in position. The massive predator's grip crushed vital organs, while the spinning motion caused additional fractures throughout her torso. Within 3 minutes, massive blood loss and internal trauma proved fatal. The crocodile released Matilda's body only after ensuring she posed no further threat, then retreated to the deeper sections of the Billabong. Park rangers launched an immediate search and recovery operation, but the murky waters and vast size of the Billabong complicated their efforts. Matilda's body was eventually located the following day, approximately 150 meters downstream from the attack site. The investigation concluded that equipment malfunction and separation from the guided group had contributed to the tragedy. Kakadu National Park officials reinforced safety protocols and increased warning signage around known crocodile habitats. The attack sent shockwaves through Australia's wildlife photography community, with many questioning the balance between artistic achievement and personal safety. It was July 22, 2016, and the scorching Oklahoma sun beat down on the dusty grounds of Wild Heart Big Cat Sanctuary. a private-owned facility nestled among rolling hills 30 miles outside Tulsa. The 50-acre property housed over 20 rescued lions, tigers, and other exotic cats in a collection of chain-link enclosures that stretched across the rural landscape. The afternoon air shimmered with heat, while the distant sounds of roaring and pacing echoed from various habitats as the cats sought shade from the oppressive summer temperatures. Ashley Martinez, a 23-year-old college student from Dallas, had discovered the sanctuary through social media while road tripping with her boyfriend Jake through Oklahoma's quirky roadside attractions. Ashley was constantly seeking unique photo opportunities for her personal memories, having grown up taking pictures at every family vacation and special event. Her phone was filled with daredevil shots from cliff edges, abandoned buildings, and extreme sports activities that showcased her fearless personality to friends and family. Ashley had grown up in suburban Dallas as the youngest of 3 sisters, developing a competitive streak that drove her to constantly push boundaries and seek attention through increasingly dramatic stunts. Her psychology major at Texas Tech University had given her confidence in reading people and situations, but her academic knowledge didn't extend to understanding animal behavior. That afternoon, Ashley and Jacob paid the sanctuary's fee for a close encounter experience that promised visitors the chance to observe big cats during feeding demonstrations and educational presentations. The facility operated in a legal gray area, offering interactions that legitimate zoos and accredited sanctuaries would never permit. African lions are apex predators that retain all their wild instincts regardless of human contact or hand-rearing. Adult males can weigh up to 420 pounds and possess incredible strength, speed, and territorial behaviors that make them extremely dangerous in captivity. Lions are social animals with complex hierarchies, but they view humans as either threats to be eliminated or prey to be consumed. Their powerful jaws can deliver bite forces exceeding 650 pounds per square inch, while their razor-sharp claws can inflict fatal wounds with a single swipe. Ashley watched the feeding demonstration with growing excitement as the sanctuary owner led visitors around the various enclosures while sharing dubious stories about each animal's rescue. The highlight of the tour was Caesar, a massive 400-pound male African lion who had been hand-raised from a cub and appeared remarkably calm during the presentation. As the tour concluded and other visitors began leaving, Ashley saw her opportunity for the ultimate photo. She whispered her plan to Jake, asking him to distract the sanctuary owner while she climbed over the barrier for a close-up selfie with Caesar. While Jake engaged the owner in conversation, Ashley quietly approached Caesar's enclosure and climbed over the 4-foot chain-link barrier. The massive lion was resting approximately 10 feet away, his golden eyes tracking her movement but showing no immediate signs of aggression. Ashley crouched down beside the massive lion and extended her phone to capture both herself and Caesar in the frame. Caesar's demeanor changed subtly as Ashley moved closer, his ears flattening slightly against his massive head, while his tail began twitching with increasing frequency. The attack came with explosive suddenness. Caesar's predatory instincts activated the moment Ashley moved to adjust her pose, triggering millions of years of evolutionary programming that recognized her as prey within its territory. The 400-pound lion launched himself at Ashley with devastating speed, covering the distance between them in a single powerful bound. Ashley's phone flew from her grip as Caesar's massive paws struck her chest, driving her backward onto the dusty ground, while his razor-sharp claws found purchase on her torso and shoulders. The lion's powerful jaws clamped down on Ashley's neck, his 4-inch canine teeth puncturing through muscle and vertebra with crushing force. Caesar's territorial instincts drove him to continue the assault, his powerful claws raking across Ashley's body while his crushing bite maintained its grip on her throat. Ashley's movements grew weaker as massive blood loss and spinal trauma overwhelmed her system. Jake's horrified screams brought the sanctuary owner running, but Caesar's aggressive posture over his kill made immediate intervention extremely dangerous. Ashley's movement ceased within minutes, as Caesar's brutal assault proved fatal. Emergency responders arrived within 30 minutes, but there was nothing they could do for Ashley. The investigation revealed that the facility had been operating without proper permits and insurance, violating numerous state regulations regarding public safety around dangerous animals. Caesar was relocated to an accredited sanctuary with proper containment measures. Ashley's death devastated her family and prompted her university to implement enhanced safety education for students traveling during breaks. The incident led to stricter regulations for private exotic animal facilities in Oklahoma and enhanced enforcement of existing safety laws.
It was September 7th, 2013, and the Memphis Zoo was winding down from another busy Saturday as the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the facility's 70 acres. The education department had just finished their final program of the day, and volunteers were completing their cleanup duties before heading home. In the American black bear exhibit, the facility's 3 bears were settling into their evening routine, with most visitors having moved on to other attractions as closing time approached. Patricia Williams, known to everyone as Patty, had been volunteering at the Memphis Zoo for 6 months since retiring from her 30-year career as an elementary school teacher. At 52, she had found a new purpose in educating visitors about wildlife conservation and had developed a particular fondness for the zoo's American black bear exhibit. Her gentle nature and natural teaching ability made her a favorite among both staff and visitors, and she often stayed after her volunteer shifts to observe the animals she had grown to love. Patty had developed an unofficial routine of spending time at the bear exhibit after her education duties ended, finding peace in watching the bears' natural behaviors when the crowds thinned out. She had given each bear a nickname and could identify them by their individual characteristics and personalities. Her favorite was a large male she called Gentle Ben, due to his calm demeanor during feeding demonstrations and his apparent comfort around humans. American black bears are North America's most common bear species, with adult males weighing between 250 and 400 pounds. Despite their name, black bears can range in color from black to brown, cinnamon, or even blonde, depending on their geographic location and individual genetics. These omnivores possess incredible strength, capable of running 30 miles per hour and climbing trees with surprising agility despite their size. Black bears have excellent memories and problem-solving abilities, but they remain wild animals with unpredictable temperaments. Their claws, designed for digging and climbing, can grow up to 4 inches long and are capable of inflicting severe injuries. While generally less aggressive than grizzly bears, black bears can become extremely dangerous when they feel threatened or are protecting food sources. After completing her volunteer duties that afternoon, Patty noticed something unusual as she made her customary stop at the bear exhibit. Ben appeared to have some kind of debris caught in his fur near the fence line, what looked like a piece of plastic or paper that was bothering him as he moved around the exhibit. Patty's teacher instincts kicked in, and she felt compelled to help remove what she perceived as litter that might harm the animals she had grown fond of. Believing that Ben recognized her as a friendly presence from her months of regular visits, Patty approached the outer fence of the exhibit. The debris appeared to be just within reach if she extended her arm through the chain-link barrier, and she was confident that her gentle approach wouldn't alarm the bear she considered docile and trustworthy. What Patty failed to understand was that Ben, despite his calm behavior during supervised feeding times, remained a wild animal with powerful predatory instincts that could be triggered unpredictably. The bear's apparent recognition of regular visitors was actually learned behavior associated with food rewards, not genuine affection or trust. When Patty's hand came through the fence, Ben's instincts interpreted the movement as either a food offering or a potential threat that required investigation. Ben's response was swift and devastating. The 350-pound bear grabbed Patty's extended arm with his powerful jaws, his teeth puncturing through muscle and bone, while his incredible strength pulled her against the fence with crushing force. Patty's attempts to withdraw her arm only triggered Ben's natural response to hold on to struggling prey, his bite pressure increasing as she tried to escape. The bear's powerful front paws gripped the fence while he used his massive strength to pull Patty's arm further through the barrier opening. Ben's claws, each over 3 inches long, raked across Patty's arm and shoulder, opening deep gashes that severed major arteries and caused massive blood loss. The bear's natural feeding behavior took over as he began to consume the flesh from Patty's trapped limb. Patty's screams echoed across the exhibit area, but the zoo was nearly empty as closing time approached, and no staff members were in the immediate vicinity to respond to her cries for help. Her struggles grew weaker as blood loss and shock overwhelmed her system, her body unable to withstand the massive trauma being inflicted by Ben's powerful jaws and claws. Evening staff discovered Patty's body when they arrived for the closing procedures, finding her collapsed against the fence with Ben still protective of his kill. The bear was successfully tranquilized, but Patty had succumbed to her injuries from massive blood loss and trauma. The investigation revealed that Patty had violated safety protocols by reaching through the barrier, despite her good intentions to help the animal. The incident led to the installation of double barrier fencing throughout the zoo and stricter supervision policies for volunteers. It was September 14th, 2017, and the golden afternoon sun cast long shadows across the pristine beaches of Ballina, New South Wales, Australia, as weekend visitors enjoyed the unseasonably warm weather that had drawn crowds to the popular coastal destination. Emma and Sophie Clark stood at the water's edge, their matching swimsuits and synchronized movements reflecting the close bond they had shared since childhood. At 24 and 26 respectively, the Melbourne sisters had maintained their tradition of annual weekend getaways despite their busy professional lives, with Emma working as a physiotherapist and Sophie teaching primary school. Both were accomplished swimmers who had grown up surfing together on Victoria's coast, their confidence in the water earned through years of experience in some of Australia's most challenging surf conditions. They had specifically chosen Ballina for this year's trip, based on online reviews praising its calm waters and family-friendly swimming areas, unaware that recent flooding had dramatically altered the local marine ecosystem. The sisters had noticed the small warning signs posted near the beach entrance about increased marine activity, but the vague wording seemed more like standard legal protection than urgent safety information. Local surf shops had been quietly discussing unusual bull shark sightings over the past week, but this information hadn't reached the tourist accommodation where Emma and Sophie were staying. Bull sharks are among the most dangerous sharks in the world, capable of surviving in both saltwater and freshwater environments that make them uniquely adaptable predators. Adult bulls can reach lengths of 11 feet and weights exceeding 500 pounds, with powerful jaws designed for crushing bone and tearing flesh. These aggressive hunters are responsible for more attacks on humans than any other shark species. Their territorial nature and ability to hunt in shallow, murky water, making them particularly dangerous to swimmers and surfers. The sisters decided to swim out to a sandbar approximately 200 meters from shore, their plan to race each other to the formation and back, representing the kind of friendly competition that had defined their relationship since childhood. Emma entered the water first, her powerful strokes cutting through the surface as Sophie followed close behind, both women laughing and calling out encouragement to each other. What they didn't realize was that a 9-foot bull shark had been patrolling the area for the past hour, drawn by the scent trail created by the recent flooding and the increased baitfish activity near the river mouth. The attack came without warning as Emma reached the halfway point to the sandbar, her rhythmic swimming stroke suddenly interrupted by a massive impact from below. The bull shark struck with devastating force, its powerful jaws clamping down on Emma's left leg and hip, while its muscular body thrashed violently in the churning water. Emma's scream pierced the afternoon air as the shark's razor-sharp teeth punctured through muscle and bone, opening massive wounds that immediately began bleeding profusely into the surrounding water. Sophie heard her sister's cry and immediately changed direction, swimming frantically toward the area where Emma had disappeared beneath the surface. The shark's second strike targeted Sophie as she attempted to support her injured sister. The predator's aggressive nature escalated by the blood in the water and the frantic movements of both women. The bull shark's jaws clamped down on Sophie's torso with bone-crushing force, its teeth puncturing through her ribcage and into vital organs, while its powerful bite force compressed her chest cavity. Emma's attempts to help her sister only attracted the shark's attention back to her, the bull shark's feeding frenzy now fully activated aggravated by the presence of multiple victims and the increasing concentration of blood in the water. The shark struck Emma again, this time targeting her upper body and arms as she tried desperately to stay afloat. The predator's powerful jaws crushed her shoulder and collarbone while its thrashing movements drove its teeth deeper into her chest and neck. The rescue team reached the scene approximately 8 minutes after the initial attack, using emergency flares and noisemakers to drive the bull shark away from the victims. Both sisters were pulled from the water and rushed to shore, but their massive injuries made any medical intervention futile. Emma and Sophie were pronounced dead at the scene, their annual tradition ending in tragedy that would devastate their family and shock the local community. The incident prompted immediate beach closures along the entire New South Wales coast, with authorities implementing enhanced shark monitoring systems and improved warning protocols for tourists. The sisters' deaths led to investigations into tourist information systems and calls for better communication about marine hazards to visitors unfamiliar with local conditions.
It was March 22, 2015. The humid air of Chiang Mai province hung heavy with the scent of jasmine and diesel fumes. In the hills outside the city, a facility calling itself an ethical tiger sanctuary drew tourists with promises of close encounters and conservation education. The bamboo structures and lush vegetation created an illusion of natural habitat, but beneath the surface, corners were being cut in ways that would prove deadly. Isla Munro and Sawyer Beck had arrived in Thailand 5 days earlier for their honeymoon. Isla, 27, taught middle school art and had an adventurous spirit that constantly sought out experiences beyond the typical tourist trail. Sawyer, 29, worked in IT and maintained a modest travel blog read mostly by friends and co-workers. They weren't influencers, just a couple who enjoyed documenting their adventures and sharing them with their small online community. The sanctuary had been Isla's choice, selected after hours of research into what she believed were ethical wildlife encounters. The facility's website emphasized conservation and education, with photos of visitors safely interacting with tiger cubs under professional supervision. What the marketing materials didn't mention were the facility's financial struggles and the resulting shortcuts in safety protocols. The guide that day was Somchai, a young man with limited experience who had been hired just weeks earlier. The facility was understaffed and operating on the shoestring budget, relying heavily on inexperienced workers who received minimal training. Somchai had been told the basics: keep tourists away from adult tigers, supervise cub interactions, and always secure the transport gates. But in the chaos of managing multiple tour groups, critical details were often overlooked. Tigers are apex predators capable of killing prey much larger than humans. An adult tiger can weigh up to 660 pounds and possesses a bite force of 1,000 pounds per square inch. They're ambush hunters, capable of explosive bursts of speed reaching 35 miles per hour. Even in captivity, their predatory instincts remain intact, and they can attack without warning when startled or threatened. The couple was led to a semi-open enclosure where several tiger cubs played under the afternoon sun. The area was separated from the adult tiger section by a series of gates and barriers, designed to allow staff to move animals safely between enclosures. Isla and Sawyer settled onto a wooden bench as Somchai brought over a 6-month-old cub for supervised interaction. Isla was delighted, gently stroking the cub's fur while Sawyer prepared his camera for what they planned as their signature honeymoon photo. The cub was docile and well socialized, purring softly as Isla scratched behind its ears. Everything seemed perfect as Sawyer positioned himself beside his wife, extending his arm to frame the shot. What none of them noticed was that Sawyer had inadvertently leaned against one of the transport gates. The latch, which should have been secured with a padlock, had been left unlocked by a staff member who assumed the area had been cleared after the morning feeding. The gate was designed to swing inward under pressure, and Sawyer's weight was gradually pushing it open. Behind the gate, a 400-pound adult male tiger named Raja paced restlessly. He had been moved to the transport area earlier that morning and forgotten in the confusion of managing tour groups. The scent of humans and the presence of the cub had made him increasingly agitated. The gate creaked open just wide enough for Raja to squeeze through. Isla and Sawyer were completely focused on their photo, with Somchai distracted by another tourist question. The adult tiger emerged silently, his massive frame moving with predatory grace as he assessed the situation. Raja struck without warning, lunging at Isla with explosive force. His claws raked across her back as his weight drove her to the ground. She screamed as his jaws clamped down on her shoulder, crushing bone and tearing through muscle. Sawyer spun around and instinctively threw himself at the tiger, trying to pull his wife free. The tiger released Isla and turned on Sawyer, swatting him aside with a paw that sent him crashing into the wooden fence. Raja's claws opened 4 deep gashes across Sawyer's chest before his teeth found the young man's throat. The bite was swift and devastating, crushing his windpipe and severing major arteries. Somchai screamed for help as other staff members came running. The facility's emergency protocol called for tranquilizer guns, but in the panic, no one could locate the equipment quickly enough. By the time senior staff arrived with noisemakers and barriers to drive Raja back, both Isla and Sawyer lay motionless in pools of blood. Isla had died from massive blood loss caused by the tiger's claws puncturing her lung and severing arteries in her shoulder. Sawyer's injuries were even more severe. His throat had been crushed, and he had lost consciousness within seconds of the attack. Both were pronounced dead at the scene. The authorities launched an investigation that revealed numerous safety violations at the facility. The sanctuary was immediately shut down, and criminal charges were filed against the owners for negligent homicide. The case was quietly settled out of court, with the families receiving undisclosed compensation. The tiger cubs were relocated to a legitimate conservation facility, while Raja and the other adult tigers were transferred to a government-run sanctuary with proper security measures. The facility's property was eventually sold and converted to a hotel. Isla and Sawyer's travel blog remained online for months after their deaths, their final post describing their excitement about visiting the tiger sanctuary. Friends eventually took it down, unable to bear the contrast between their hopeful words and the tragedy that followed. It was January 14, 2013, when the bitter Colorado winter gripped Denver with an unforgiving embrace. The Denver Zoo sat silent under a blanket of fresh snow, its pathways empty and gates locked against the sub-zero temperatures that had plummeted to minus 10 degrees C. Street lamps cast long shadows across the frozen landscape, illuminating the crystalline formations that clung to every surface. The city's homeless population had scattered to whatever shelter they could find, desperately seeking refuge from the deadly cold that claimed lives each winter. Nathaniel Price, a weathered 52-year-old man, had been living on Denver's streets for nearly 4 years. His graying beard was matted with ice crystals, and his worn jacket provided little protection against the Arctic blast that swept through the urban corridors. Having exhausted his usual options for warmth, including the overcrowded shelters and heated subway grates, Nathaniel found himself walking along the zoo's perimeter fence. The facility's buildings appeared to offer the kind of shelter that could mean the difference between surviving the night and becoming another winter casualty. The chain-link barrier stood 8 feet high, topped with barbed wire that glinted menacingly in the moonlight. But desperation had sharpened Nathaniel's survival instincts, and he managed to scale the fence using a nearby dumpster as leverage. His hands, numb from the cold, barely registered the cuts from the wire as he dropped into the zoo grounds. The snow crunched beneath his feet as he moved between the darkened exhibits, searching for any structure that might provide warmth. Snow leopards are among nature's most perfectly adapted predators, built for survival in the harsh mountain ranges of Central Asia. These magnificent cats possess incredibly dense fur that can withstand temperatures as low as minus 40 degrees Celsius. Their powerful hindquarters and oversized paws act as natural snowshoes, allowing them to traverse steep, snowy terrain with remarkable agility. Weighing between 60 to 120 pounds, snow leopards are solitary hunters, with exceptional night vision and hearing that can detect the slightest movement from considerable distances. Nathaniel's eyes fell upon a small concrete building with steam rising from vents along its roof. A weathered metal sign read, "Boiler Room, authorized personnel only," but the promise of warmth overrode any concern about trespassing. It bore no warnings or signage beyond the cryptic label, giving no hint of the predator housed behind its walls. The structure looked exactly like the utility buildings he'd seen at countless facilities. Nothing to suggest the horrors within. Using a piece of metal debris, he pried at the door's locking mechanism until it gave way with a sharp crack. The interior was blessedly warm, filled with the steady hum of heating equipment and pipes that radiated life-saving heat along the walls. What Nathaniel couldn't have known was that Z5 served as an auxiliary keeper chamber, connected directly to the snow leopard habitat through a reinforced passage. The female snow leopard, a 7-year-old specimen named Kira, had been resting on a rocky ledge within her enclosure when the unfamiliar sounds and scents reached her acute senses. Nathaniel settled beneath the heating pipes, finally feeling warmth return to his extremities. The relief was overwhelming as he curled into a tight ball, his body beginning to thaw from the night's brutal assault. But his presence had triggered something primal in the predator beyond the connecting passage. Kira moved with the silent precision that had evolved over millennia. Her padded paws made no sound as she approached the partially open passage door. The scent of an intruder filled her nostrils, activating hunting instincts that recognized no distinction between prey and trespasser. The attack came without warning. Kira's powerful frame exploded through the passage opening, her 100-pound body striking Nathaniel with devastating force. Her massive paws, equipped with razor-sharp retractable claws, made contact with his torso, puncturing through his jacket and into the flesh beneath. The impact drove him against the concrete wall with bone-crushing intensity. Nathaniel's ribs cracked under the initial assault, sharp fragments piercing his lungs and causing immediate internal bleeding. Kira's jaws, capable of exerting over 400 pounds of pressure per square inch, clamped down on his neck and shoulder area. Her 4-inch canine teeth penetrated deep into vital arteries, severing the carotid and causing massive hemorrhaging. The snow leopard's killing bite was swift and efficient. Her powerful jaw muscles compressed Nathaniel's windpipe while her claws raked across his chest and abdomen, opening deep lacerations that exposed internal organs. The combination of blood loss, trauma, and asphyxiation proved fatal within minutes. Zoo security discovered the scene the following morning during routine facility checks. The investigation revealed that Nathaniel had inadvertently entered a restricted area connected to the snow leopard habitat. Officials determined that the death resulted from unauthorized trespassing rather than any failure of zoo safety protocols. Zoo administrators decided against euthanizing Kira, recognizing that she had acted according to her natural instincts when confronted with an intruder in her territory. It was April 4th, 2013. The midday heat in the lower Satpura Hills shimmered over the dusty ridges. Wind moved in irregular gusts, stirring loose grit along the trail. Pravin Joshi, walking alone with the GPS unit in hand, paused along a narrow ridge path to check coordinates. Behind him, unseen but watching, a female sloth bear had already begun to close the distance. Pravin Joshi was a 41-year-old field officer with Maharashtra's irrigation department who had worked over a decade mapping terrain for small-scale canal and dam proposals. He was considered dependable by his supervisors, experienced with rough terrain, competent with handheld equipment, and known to travel light. Off hours, he had a hobbyist interest in wildlife photography, especially larger mammals. He often posted grainy but earnest snapshots from field assignments to his social media feed. This trip was a solo route survey, just over 6 miles, tracing potential canal sites through a remote corner of the Satpura Range. His field notes later confirm he had completed 2 of his 5 checkpoints and was between designated trails when the attack occurred. GPS logs showed a deviation, likely a shortcut along a ridge linking 2 valleys. At 1:17 p.m., a forest ranger posted 330 feet downslope spotted him pausing by a rock outcrop and raising his phone. Joshi likely believed he had a safe vantage point. In the near distance below, a sloth bear and 2 cubs moved through scrub, mostly hidden from his view. Sloth bears are among Asia's most aggressive bear species, averaging 5 to 6 feet in length and weighing up to 300 pounds. Their massive claws, designed for tearing apart termite mounds, can grow up to 3 inches long and are capable of inflicting devastating wounds. Female bears with cubs are particularly dangerous, as their maternal instinct to protect their young overrides any natural caution. Defensive encounters often result in severe head and facial injuries, as sloth bears typically target the face and skull of perceived threats. The terrain around Joshi was dry, with scattered boulders and sparse undergrowth, typical of the early summer transition. Trees thinned toward the ridge, and visibility was reduced by uneven rock and the steep fall-off on one side. Bears in this region are active during the day, especially females with cubs. The ranger stationed to monitor illegal woodcutting in the valley saw the bear rise briefly from behind brush before beginning its charge. He shouted desperately, but Joshi did not appear to hear the warning. The ranger fired a warning shot into the air as the bear charged, but it kept going. By the time Joshi reacted, the bear had already covered most of the slope, estimated at 200 feet in under 10 seconds. Joshi turned just as the animal crested the ridge with terrifying speed. The first contact was a swipe, heavy and fast, striking the left side of Joshi's face with devastating force. He dropped the phone and staggered sideways into the dust. The bear was on him instantly, clawing at his head, neck, and arms with its massive 3-inch claws. Joshi rolled and tried to protect his face, but the bear bit through his forearm and struck again at the base of his skull. The witness described rapid, chaotic movement, dust thrown into the air, Joshi's legs kicking, the bear rising and dropping as it mauled repeatedly with brutal efficiency. A second shot was fired by the ranger, closer this time, but it did nothing. Only after a third shot cracked through the air did the bear finally hesitate, lift its head, and bolt downhill with the cubs. The entire event ended in a minute. By the time the ranger reached the site, Joshi was unresponsive. His shirt was shredded and the ground soaked in blood. Multiple lacerations exposed bone, and his jaw and eye socket were crushed beyond recognition. He showed no signs of breathing. A Forest Service team called in by the ranger recovered the body just after 5 p.m., using a makeshift stretcher and pack mule support. His equipment, GPS unit, phone, notebook, was collected nearby, covered in dust and blood. The final photo on his device was unclear but showed the trail curving into scrub, with a black shape barely visible in the distance. The phone had been cracked in the fall but remained functional. The official report confirmed Joshi had deviated from his assigned path without informing local rangers. While he had appropriate field permissions, his detour placed him within a known wildlife corridor during cub rearing season. The sloth bear was not tracked or euthanized, as its behavior was ruled defensive and consistent with regional norms. Joshi's funeral was held in Nagpur with state employee honors. His department provided travel assistance to family members. Wildlife officials reiterated standard guidance. Field staff should avoid solo work in known bear habitats during spring months, and no photos should be taken near visible animals. It was September 22, 2015, when the rugged wilderness of Angeles National Forest in California became the backdrop for a deadly encounter that would shock the hiking community. The San Gabriel Mountains rose majestically around the Gabrielino Trail, their granite peaks catching the first rays of dawn as ancient oak trees cast long shadows across the rocky terrain. Switzer Falls lay hidden deep within the canyon, where crystal-clear water cascaded over moss-covered boulders. The remote location, accessible only by a challenging 5-mile trek through dense chaparral, attracted those seeking solitude away from crowded trails. Tiffany Monroe, a 31-year-old travel blogger from Los Angeles, has built her reputation documenting Southern California's hidden gems for her growing online audience. Her fearless approach to solo hiking and wildlife photography had earned her thousands of followers who eagerly awaited her latest adventures. That morning, she had set out before sunrise to capture the perfect shots of Switzer Falls during the golden hour. Tiffany's extensive hiking experience in the region had made her confident about navigating the challenging terrain alone, though she had never encountered the area's most elusive and dangerous predator. The mountain lion stands as North America's second largest cat and one of its most efficient predators. These solitary hunters can reach lengths of 8 feet and weights of up to 180 pounds, with powerful hindquarters capable of propelling them in leaps exceeding 40 feet horizontally and 15 feet vertically. Their retractable claws, measuring up to 2 inches long, provide deadly weapons for grasping prey, while their muscular jaws deliver crushing bite forces of 400 pounds per square inch. Mountain lions possess exceptional night vision and hearing, making them nearly invisible stalkers in their natural habitat. Their territorial nature and opportunistic hunting behavior have adapted perfectly to the rugged terrain of Southern California's mountains. At 6:20 a.m., Tiffany encountered a 120-pound male mountain lion sunning himself on a granite boulder formation approximately 200 yards from the main trail. The cat appeared relaxed in the early morning warmth, his tawny coat blending seamlessly with the sun-bleached rock. This particular male was an older animal whose prime territory had been claimed by younger cats, forcing him into marginal habitat where competition for food had made him increasingly aggressive. Tiffany's fatal mistake occurred when she approached to within 20 feet of the resting predator, believing the animal would flee like smaller wildlife she had previously encountered. She crouched down low and extended her phone toward the cat, unknowingly mimicking the posture and movements of prey animals. The mountain lion's predatory instincts immediately recognized these behaviors as vulnerability signals. The cat's pupils dilated as his hunting instincts activated, and his tail began twitching rapidly. His powerful hindquarters coiled like springs as he shifted into an attack position, every muscle tensing for the explosive leap that would follow. When Tiffany made direct eye contact while maintaining her crouched position, the mountain lion interpreted this as a direct challenge. The attack began with devastating speed as the cougar launched himself through the air in a single fluid motion. His 120-pound body struck Tiffany with tremendous force, knocking her backward onto the rocky ground. The cat's razor-sharp claws extended fully, digging deep into her shoulders and chest as he established his grip. The mountain lion's powerful jaws clamped down on Tiffany's neck with surgical precision, his 4 canine teeth penetrating through skin, muscle, and cartilage to reach vital structures beneath. The cat's bite targeted the carotid artery and jugular vein simultaneously, causing massive hemorrhaging that flooded her airway and cut off blood flow to her brain. His teeth punctured completely through her neck, severing the spinal cord at the second cervical vertebra. Tiffany's body went limp immediately as the spinal cord injury caused instant paralysis and respiratory failure. The mountain lion maintained his death grip for nearly 2 minutes, ensuring his prey couldn't escape. The combination of massive blood loss, airway obstruction, and spinal cord trauma caused death within 90 seconds of the initial attack. After confirming his kill, the mountain lion began dragging his prey to a secluded location. Using his incredible strength, He pulled Tiffany's body 50 feet into dense manzanita brush where he could feed undisturbed. Search and rescue teams discovered Tiffany's remains 3 days later after her failure to return prompted concerned friends to contact authorities. Wildlife officials located and tracked the responsible mountain lion, which was ultimately euthanized according to state protocols. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife conducted a thorough investigation, determining that drought conditions had reduced the mountain lion's natural prey populations, forcing the animal into more aggressive hunting behaviors. Tiffany's family advocated for improved trail safety education and better warning systems in areas with known mountain lion activity. It was November 3, 2013, when the tranquil waters of the Mary River in Australia's Northern Territory became the scene of a devastating crocodile attack that would shatter a family's annual tradition. The Mary River winds through pristine wilderness in the top end, its muddy banks lined with pandanus palms and paperbark trees that create perfect shades for camping families. During the dry season, water levels drop significantly, concentrating wildlife around remaining water sources and creating ideal conditions for predator encounters. Tara Winslet, a 36-year-old primary school teacher from Alice Springs, had been looking forward to this annual camping expedition for months. Known for her adventurous spirit and dedication to environmental education, Tara believed in showing her children the wonders of Australian wildlife in their natural habitat. Her husband Paul, a 38-year-old mining engineer, shared her passion for the outdoors, but maintained a more cautious approach. Their two children, 8-year-old Emma and 6-year-old Jack, idolized their mother's fearless attitude toward nature. The family had established their campsite 30 meters from the Mary River's edge, following standard safety recommendations for crocodile country. Paul had briefed the children about the dangers of approaching the water without adult supervision. However, the unusually hot November weather had depleted their water supplies faster than anticipated, forcing them to consider refilling their containers from the river despite the inherent risks. Tara's role as an educator had instilled in her a deep respect for Australian wildlife, but it had also created overconfidence. She had successfully taught hundreds of children about crocodile safety and believed her knowledge would protect her family during their wilderness adventures. Saltwater crocodiles are apex predators that have remained virtually unchanged for over 200 million years, making them one of nature's most successful hunters. These massive reptiles can grow to lengths exceeding 20 feet and possess the strongest bite force of any living animal, capable of exerting pressure over 3,700 pounds per square inch. Their hunting strategy relies on patience and explosive power, often remaining motionless for hours before launching devastating ambush attacks. During the dry season, crocodiles concentrate around remaining water sources, making them particularly dangerous to humans. At 6:20 p.m., as the sun began to set over the Mary River, Tara approached the water's edge carrying 2 empty 5-liter containers. The 17-foot male crocodile had been positioned among the reeds for over 2 hours, perfectly camouflaged and waiting for an opportunity to strike. As Tara bent down to fill the first container, she heard splashing sounds from the water and instinctively stepped back from the riverbank. Believing the noise was caused by fish activity, she returned to the water's edge after a brief hesitation, a decision that would prove fatal. The massive crocodile exploded from the shallow water with terrifying speed, its powerful jaws clamping around Tara's right arm and shoulder. The crushing bite force instantly dislocated her shoulder joint and fractured her humerus bone. The impact knocked her off balance, sending the water containers flying across the muddy bank. Paul and the children watched in horror from the campsite as Tara screamed and was dragged toward deeper water. The crocodile's canonical teeth, each measuring up to 3 inches long, penetrated deep into Tara's arm and shoulder, creating multiple puncture wounds that caused immediate and severe bleeding. The predator began its signature death roll, spinning violently through the water while maintaining its crushing grip. Each rotation broke additional bones in Tara's arm and shoulder, while the spinning motion prevented any possibility of escape. As the death roll continued, the crocodile's powerful body twisted through the knee-deep water, dragging Tara further from shore. The violent spinning motion caused her fractured ribs to puncture her lungs, creating internal bleeding and making breathing increasingly difficult. She briefly surfaced during the attack, gasping for air and calling for help, before being pulled underwater again by the relentless predator. The crocodile's death roll lasted approximately 3 minutes, during which time the massive reptile's teeth caused catastrophic damage to Tara's upper body. The crushing bite force and repeated spinning motions resulted in massive blood loss from multiple arterial wounds. The combination of drowning, blood loss, and internal trauma from punctured organs proved rapidly fatal. The predator maintained its grip until certain its victim posed no further threat before releasing her body in the shallow water. Paul immediately called emergency services using their satellite phone while keeping the traumatized children away from the water's edge. Emergency services and crocodile management specialists arrived 2 hours after the attack, using specialized equipment to secure the area before recovering Tara's body. The investigation revealed that the attack occurred during peak crocodile activity hours, when predators are most likely to hunt near shorelines. The tragedy devastated the Alice Springs community, where Tara was beloved by colleagues and students. Her school established a memorial garden in her honor, and her family created an educational foundation promoting crocodile safety awareness. It was November 2nd, 2017 at Wildlife Safari Park in Winston, Oregon. The weather was cool with light cloud cover. Cars moved slowly through the drive-through areas, engines idling as visitors looked for animals in the open spaces. In the tiger section, a single tiger was lying on the ground near the edge of the road, watching the passing vehicles. The area was quiet, and there were no signs that anything out of the ordinary was about to happen. Rohit Sharma was 24 and had recently graduated from a university in Portland. He was working part-time while looking for a full-time job. Outside of work, he often went on short day trips with friends and co-workers. Photography was one of his hobbies. He liked getting close-up shots of wildlife and nature. His pictures were organized in albums on his computer and phone, and he added new ones after each trip. This visit to the park was meant to be a relaxed afternoon with 2 co-workers, a break from routine and a chance to take a few new photos. The group entered the tiger section in mid-afternoon. They followed another car at a slow pace along the road. At the entrance, signs clearly warned visitors to keep their windows closed at all times in predator areas. Rohit had seen the signs but preferred taking pictures without window glare. He lowered the passenger window for a clearer view. When he spotted the tiger lying in the grass, he leaned out slightly to get a better shot. His co-workers told him to be careful, but he kept adjusting his position. The tiger's habitat covered a large area. The ground was a mix of dry grass and bare dirt with some scattered trees. The road looped through, keeping a set distance between cars and the tree line. The tiger was lying on its side, head raised, looking toward the vehicles. Its tail moved slowly in the dirt. The setting was quiet, except for the low hum of idling engines. Bengal tigers can weigh over 400 pounds. They can run up to 40 miles per hour in short bursts and are powerful enough to bring down prey much larger than a human. Their claws can grip and pull strongly, and their bite can crush bone. Tigers often aim for the neck or throat to quickly disable their prey. Even in captivity, their hunting instincts remain, and sudden movement or a nearby opening can trigger them to react. Rohit took a few pictures, but the angle wasn't what he wanted. He leaned farther out, placing his upper body halfway outside the car window. The tiger's tail flicked once, and its ears moved forward. It slowly rose to its feet, lowering its head as it began to walk toward the road. At first, the movement was steady and unhurried. Then, in a sudden burst, the tiger broke into a run. Its body stayed low to the ground, and its long strides covered the open space quickly. Rohit started to pull himself back inside the vehicle, but the tiger reached the roadside before he could get fully in. It lifted a front paw and hooked his arm with its claws. The pull was forceful enough to unbalance him. Rohit fell from the car and landed on the dirt. The tiger reached him instantly. It pressed him down with its weight and bit into his side. Witnesses in nearby cars saw him try to push the animal away, but the tiger shifted its grip to his neck. The hold was firm, and the attack continued for several seconds. The sound was a mix of low growls and movement against the ground. Several drivers sounded their horns. Park rangers arrived within moments in a truck. They fired warning shots into the air. The noise startled the tiger, and it released Rohit, backing away toward the tree line. Rangers reached him quickly and pulled him farther from the road. His injuries were severe. The bite to his neck had caused heavy bleeding, and he was unresponsive. Paramedics entered once the rangers confirmed the area was secure. They began emergency care immediately, but the blood loss was too great. Rohit was pronounced dead within minutes. His camera was found on the ground near the vehicle. It was scratched and damaged, but the memory card was still intact. The last photo was slightly blurred, but showed the tiger standing and facing toward the road. The park closed the tiger section for the rest of the day. Staff reviewed their safety measures and began planning changes. Within a few weeks, the park announced new rules requiring all vehicles, including visitor cars, to either have window bars installed or keep all windows fully closed in predator areas. Rohit's body was returned to Portland for cremation. His funeral service was attended by family, close friends, and his 2 co-workers who had been with him at the park. The incident was covered briefly by the local news, but received little attention outside the region. The tiger involved in the attack remained in the park. Staff made changes to keep it farther from the road during public visits. For the rangers and visitors who saw the event, the memory was clear. How quickly the tiger had moved, how little time there had been to react, and how a choice to lean out of a window had led to a fatal result. It was May 14th, 2017, and the ancient mountains of Great Smoky Mountains National Park rose majestically above the Tennessee landscape, their peaks shrouded in the characteristic mist that gave the range its name. The late spring afternoon was perfect for hiking, with golden sunlight filtering through the dense canopy of oak, maple, and hickory trees, while wildflowers carpeted the forest floor in brilliant colors. Sarah Johnson, a 29-year-old registered nurse from Atlanta, was enjoying a weekend hiking trip with her fiancé, Tom, exploring the park's extensive trail system while taking photos to commemorate their engagement celebration. Sarah had always loved nature photography as a hobby, carrying her camera on every outdoor adventure to capture memories of their time together. Her medical background had given her a practical understanding of emergency situations, but her experience with dangerous wildlife was limited. Sarah had been hiking throughout the Southeast for over 5 years, building her confidence and wilderness skills through countless weekend adventures with Tom. She worked long shifts at Grady Hospital's emergency department, and these mountain getaways provided essential stress relief from her demanding career saving lives in one of Atlanta's busiest trauma centers. That afternoon, Sarah and Tom were hiking through a remote alpine meadow when they discovered something extraordinary. Two black bear cubs playing in the tall grass while their mother was nowhere to be seen. Sarah immediately recognized this as a once-in-a-lifetime photo opportunity that would create incredible memories of their engagement trip. Black bears are North America's most common bear species, but mother bears with cubs become exponentially more aggressive and territorial than solitary individuals. Female bears will attack without warning to defend their young, viewing any human presence near their cubs as a mortal threat that must be eliminated immediately. Mother bears possess incredible strength and speed, capable of running up to 30 miles per hour through dense forest terrain. Sarah began photographing the adorable cubs from what she believed was a safe distance, but her excitement at capturing such rare footage led her to gradually move closer for better shots. Tom repeatedly urged her to maintain distance and leave the area, but Sarah was convinced that the mother bear was not nearby. The cubs continued their playful behavior, wrestling and tumbling through the meadow grass, while Sarah documented their every move. Her photography session continued for nearly 10 minutes, as she captured dozens of images. Sarah's fatal mistake was positioning herself between the cubs and their natural escape route to the forest edge. As she moved to get a better angle for her shots, she unknowingly blocked the path the cubs would take to reach safety if threatened. This positioning triggered the protective instincts of their mother, who had been watching from the tree line. The mother bear's charge from the forest was swift and terrifying. The 200-pound female covered the distance to Sarah's position in seconds, her powerful legs propelling her massive frame with surprising speed, while her territorial fury focused entirely on eliminating the perceived threat to her cubs. Sarah attempted to retreat when she saw the charging bear, but her foot caught on the fallen log and she tumbled backward while still clutching her camera. The mother bear reached Sarah's position before she could regain her footing, striking her with bone-crushing force. The bear's massive paw connected with Sarah's back, her razor-sharp claws raking across Sarah's spine and shoulders, while the impact shattered several ribs. Sarah's camera flew from her grip as the bear's enormous weight pinned her to the ground, her attempts to call for help silenced by the crushing pressure on her chest. The mother bear's powerful jaws clamped down on Sarah's neck, her crushing bite force fracturing vertebrae and severing vital arteries. The bear's protective instincts drove her to continue the assault until she was certain the threat to her cubs had been completely eliminated. Within minutes, Sarah's movement ceased as the mother bear's brutal assault proved fatal. The protective mother remained near Sarah's body for several more minutes, ensuring the threat was neutralized before gathering her cubs and disappearing into the dense forest. Park rangers arrived over an hour later in response to Tom's emergency call, but Sarah was already dead from massive trauma. The bear family was tracked but left undisturbed, as wildlife officials determined the mother had been acting within normal protective behavioral patterns when defending her young. Sarah's death devastated the hiking community and prompted enhanced educational programs about wildlife safety and proper distance protocols. Her family established a foundation promoting wilderness safety education, ensuring her passion for conservation would continue through enhanced protection for both wildlife and outdoor enthusiasts.
It was October 22, 2014, and the San Diego Zoo settled into the quiet rhythm of its nighttime operations. The world-famous facility, spanning 100 acres of Balboa Park, transformed after dark into a different world where nocturnal animals became active and the sounds of the day gave way to the mysterious calls of creatures adapted to darkness. The Big Cat Trail, one of the zoo's most popular attractions, took on an entirely different character at night, as the facility's collection of apex predators began their evening activities. Robert Martinez, known to everyone as Bobby, had been working night security at the San Diego Zoo for 2 years. The 34-year-old former military police officer had found the perfect job for his family situation, with steady hours that allowed him to be home during the day with his 2 young children, while his wife worked her nursing shifts at the local hospital. Bobby took pride in his thorough patrols and had never experienced a safety incident during his tenure at the zoo. Bobby's military background had instilled in him a deep sense of responsibility and attention to detail that made him an exemplary security officer. He knew every inch of the zoo's layout and had developed relationships with many of the night shift animal care staff. His colleagues appreciated his reliability and his genuine concern for the animals' welfare, often noting how he would linger at exhibits to observe the nocturnal behaviors that most people never witnessed. Mountain lions, also known as cougars or pumas, are North America's second-largest cat species, with adult males weighing between 115 and 220 pounds. These solitary predators are incredibly athletic, capable of leaping 40 feet horizontally and 15 feet vertically from a standing position. Their powerful hind legs and flexible spine make them exceptional climbers and jumpers, while their retractable claws provide excellent grip on various surfaces. Mountain lions are ambush predators with excellent night vision, designed to hunt in low-light conditions. Their bite force exceeds 400 pounds per square inch, and they typically kill prey by delivering a crushing bite to the neck or skull. During his 2 a.m. patrol route, Bobby heard unusual sounds coming from the mountain lion exhibit as he passed the Big Cat Trail. The facility's male mountain lion, Cisco, was pacing frantically along the exhibit's perimeter, vocalizing in a way that Bobby had never heard before. The cat's behavior was clearly agitated, and Bobby's experience with animals told him that something was wrong. Concerned that Cisco might be experiencing a medical emergency or reacting to some unseen threat, Bobby decided to investigate further. He used his master key to access the keeper area behind the exhibit, planning to get a better view of the mountain lion's condition and call the veterinary team if necessary. Bobby's genuine concern for animal welfare overrode his usual caution about entering restricted areas alone. What Bobby didn't realize was that Cisco's agitation was caused by construction noise from a nearby exhibit renovation project that had been running late into the evening. The unfamiliar sounds and vibrations had triggered the mountain lion's territorial instincts, making him hypervigilant and defensive about his environment. The cat was already in a heightened state of alertness when Bobby entered the keeper area. When Bobby's flashlight beam swept across the exhibit to locate Cisco, the bright light struck the mountain lion directly in the eyes. The sudden illumination, combined with Bobby's unexpected presence in what the cat considered his territory, triggered Cisco's predatory response. The mountain lion interpreted the light and human presence as a direct threat that required immediate action. It was November 19, 2013, and the deep blue waters of the Bahamas stretched endlessly in all directions as certified scuba instructor Lisa Chen descended to 40 feet below the surface, her mission to scout new diving locations for her Vancouver-based dive shop's upcoming tour packages. The 32-year-old instructor had logged over 1,000 dives in waters around the world, her reputation for safety and professionalism making her a trusted guide for both novice and experienced divers. Lisa was diving alone to assess the site's suitability for recreational divers, her extensive experience giving her confidence in handling any challenges that might arise. Lisa's dive shop specialized in Caribbean adventures, and she had traveled to the Bahamas specifically to evaluate potential sites that would provide her clients with memorable underwater experiences while maintaining the strict safety standards that had built her business reputation. The location she was exploring featured excellent visibility and diverse marine life, exactly the kind of environment that would appeal to the recreational divers who formed the core of her clientele. Lisa's methodical approach to site evaluation included detailed documentation of depths, currents, and potential hazards. The morning's dive had been proceeding perfectly, with Lisa documenting the reef structure and marine life that would make this location ideal for her planned tour groups. Her underwater camera captured images of colorful coral formations and tropical fish species that would help market the site to potential clients. minutes. Lisa had been following her standard safety protocols, regularly checking her equipment and monitoring her air supply while maintaining the careful buoyancy control that marked her as an expert diver. Oceanic white-tip sharks are among the most dangerous sharks in open water, known for their aggressive behavior toward distressed swimmers and their tendency to investigate any unusual activity in their territory. These powerful predators can reach lengths of up to 13 feet and are characterized by their bold, curious nature that often brings them into contact with humans in pelagic environments. Oceanic white-tips are responsible for more open water attacks than any other shark species, their aggressive feeding behavior making them extremely dangerous to anyone in distress at the surface. At 40 feet depth, Lisa's diving equipment suddenly malfunctioned, her regulator system failing to deliver air properly, while her buoyancy control device began losing pressure. The equipment failure created an immediate emergency that required Lisa to make a rapid ascent to the surface, her extensive training taking over as she followed emergency procedures for dealing with multiple system failures. Lisa began her emergency ascent, but the rapid rise and her focus on equipment problems prevented her from noticing the oceanic white-tip sharks that had been following her dive boat. The sharks had been attracted to the area by fish scraps from earlier fishing activity, their aggressive nature escalated by the presence of food sources and the unusual activity around Lisa's dive boat. A 9-foot oceanic white-tip had been circling the area for the past hour, its bold personality driving it to investigate any disturbance in its territory. As Lisa broke the surface and struggled with her malfunctioning equipment, she created exactly the kind of distressed prey behavior that triggered the shark's feeding instincts. Lisa's emergency ascent had brought her to the surface approximately 100 meters from her dive boat, the distance making immediate rescue impossible while her equipment problems prevented her from signaling effectively for help. The oceanic white-tip approached with characteristic boldness, its aggressive nature overriding any natural caution as it investigated the struggling diver. Lisa was focused on her equipment malfunction, unaware that she was being stalked by one of the ocean's most dangerous predators. The oceanic white-tip struck without warning, its powerful jaws clamping down on Lisa's legs and lower torso, while its muscular body drove her underwater. The shark's razor-sharp teeth punctured through her wetsuit and into vital organs, opening massive wounds that immediately began bleeding profusely into the surrounding water. Lisa's body convulsed under the tremendous pressure as the shark's thrashing movements drove its teeth deeper into her flesh. The predator's aggressive nature was fully activated by the blood in the water and Lisa's continued struggles, the oceanic white-tip's feeding behavior becoming increasingly violent as it maintained its grip on its prey. Lisa's movements grew weaker as massive blood loss and trauma overwhelmed her system, her extensive diving experience proving useless against the raw power of the ocean's apex predator. The shark's powerful jaws worked methodically, its natural feeding instincts taking over completely. Lisa's emergency beacon activated automatically when her dive computer detected her distress, but the signal took several minutes to reach rescue services, while the oceanic white-tip continued its attack. By the time rescue boats reached the area, they found only Lisa's damaged diving equipment floating on the surface, along with clear evidence of the shark attack that had claimed her life. Her body was never recovered despite extensive search efforts by marine rescue teams. The incident led to new requirements for emergency surface protocols in shark-populated waters, with enhanced communication equipment and buddy system mandates for solo diving operations. Lisa's death shocked the international diving community and prompted comprehensive reviews of equipment reliability standards for professional dive operations in predator-rich environments. Thanks for watching. Want to watch more? Click on your screen now.